Hello and welcome to FPL Malbo. My name is Andy and I've got my game week preview ahead of game week 3 for you today. Going to go through the big movers and shakers, the players that are being highly sold or highly bought this game week, and I'll give you my opinion on them. If you enjoy these videos, then please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, always appreciated when you guys do that. But I'll stop waffling, let's jump straight into it. So to preface this video, I will say I'm not going to talk too much about some of the more obvious picks, I guess. People like Madueke, who is the most bought player. That's not exactly a surprise. He got a hat-trick last week. I don't tend to knee-jerk people in after one good week. I think he started like 13 games last season and got a few goals, sort of 4 goals, something like that. If he's nailed in that Chelsea team, he'll be a great option going forward. But those sort of players are always kind of wait and see for me. I don't know whether he's going to keep his place in the team. They've got an outrageous amount of options on the wing. So, yeah, the people who've just had one sort of good game week and have been brought in a lot, not going to talk about them too much. It's the ones that have kind of I think there's more interesting stuff to say, I guess, whether they're likely to keep their place, likely to keep up their form, that sort of thing. So let's start off with the defenders. And first up, I've got Rico Lewis. Now, as a Man City fan, Man City players were always kind of on my radar, I guess. Rico Lewis has started the first 2 games. He also played the Community Shield and has been, I would say, very good. Not just from an FPL point of view, although also from an FPL point of view, but I'll get into that. But just as a footballing point of view, I think Kyle Walker might find, not that he's going to find it incredibly tough to get back into the team, but that I think he's lost his place at the moment. Rico Lewis is actually first choice. Obviously started because Kyle Walker came back from the Euros late, but he's earned his place. He plays the role completely differently than Kyle Walker does. He gets forward a lot and he inverts into midfield a lot, but it's not just him sitting alongside. I mean, nominally Rodri, but it's been Kovacic at the start of this season as Rodri's been out. He doesn't just sit alongside him. He pushes up. He spends a huge amount of his time in that like 8 and 10 position. He 100% should have scored against Ipswich, missed a sitter really, hitting the inside of the bar when the keeper was out of the equation. But he does pop up in those sort of areas. I don't think he's got a huge amount of assist threat. He doesn't whip a lot of balls into the box. Maybe the odd threaded pass, but I think he can pitch in with the odd goal. Man City, I would say that Ipswich game is quite typical of what we saw from Man City last season. They do just have a habit, tends to be early on in games or late on in games, that they comfortably win where they do concede one, and it is often the first shot on target, which it was against Ipswich. So I don't know. I'm not saying that he's going to get as many clean sheets as, say, an Arsenal defender, but I think there are definitely clean sheets to be had in there. And then, yeah, you're getting your way into the Man City defense for 4.5 million. Now, obviously, Pep Roulette is a thing. I expect Kyle Walker to get game time. I don't think that Rico Lewis is going to be nailed as a 90-minute man. But I think if you're taking a punt in the short term, I think he's a pretty decent pick. I think he will probably start that West Ham game. Yeah, it's maybe riskier than I would want to go. In my defense, I've got issues. I've got Barco in there. I've got Quantum there. So I can't really take a risk on another player who isn't absolutely nailed, I don't think. But if you're sitting there and you've got 5 playing defenders and you can risk bringing somebody like Rico Lewis in, I think the upside is worth it, essentially. I think he might be a very good pick going forward. Second of all, I've gone for Pedro Porro. Pedro Porro I had in a couple of drafts and then sort of decided that it wasn't worth spending the extra money on him. Tottenham do look like, or at least last season, looked like they would concede goals in most games that they played. Similar to Rico Lewis, he's someone who inverts a lot into that midfield. And again, similar to Rico Lewis, he finds himself in that sort of 8 and 10 position a huge amount of the time. I saw a touch map and he was practically alongside the striker in that Everton game a huge amount of the time when people like James Maddison were the ones who were dropping deeper and picking the balls up off the centre back. So Huge attacking potential. You can see from his stats. I don't think his expected goals are incredibly high. It's only a 2 week period to kind of judge that over, but I think he will get goals this season. He does like a shot, in the box from long range. Expected assist, zero point 0.1. Sorry, 0.4. So you would expect if he keeps that up, you're looking every sort of four fixtures maybe to get an assist from him, which is outstanding. The thing that put me off getting Tottenham players from the start, I mean, Leicester and Everton were obviously nice fixtures. Everton much nicer than I expected. I thought the Everton defence would be stronger this season. Definitely hurt by injuries though. But next up, they've got Newcastle away and Arsenal at home. If you have Porro, I think you'll be delighted with him. Not just the points that you banked, but also looking at him from an attacking point of view going forward. I probably wouldn't be looking to bring him in. If you are thinking, he's highly on your watch list, then I'd be looking for game week 5. He's already owned by 35% of managers as well, so he's highly owned. He's not a massive differential. I can see why people are looking to bring him in, but for me, I would wait a couple of weeks on that one. And then third up, I talked about Mazraoui last week, and he got an assist and 4 points against Brighton. I've not changed my mind in the slightest against him. You can see his expected assist 0.03. So you can say he's pretty lucky, to be honest, to get that assist. Fair play if you have him. I don't think he's a terrible pick at all. I think United's defence will be better this season than last year. They haven't started brilliantly, but did, of course, get a clean sheet against Fulham. But I think Martinez coming back into that team improves it massively. They've been having Maguire alongside him, but De Ligt is obviously a very, very strong option as well. So yeah, I don't know. I think long term, there's the potential for him to lose his place to Luke Shaw as well and have Dalot switch to right back. I think there's more attacking potential out of Dalot and Shaw for that matter than there is for Mazraoui. If you're looking to get rid of somebody who isn't getting the minutes, say, or you've got an Everton defender and you can afford that step up because at 0.5 million, you're mostly looking to swap it for players that probably drop from 4.4. But if you can afford him, there's worse picks out there. That Liverpool fixture up next is pretty horrible, but with Southampton and Crystal Palace afterwards, there could potentially be a clean sheet in there. I wouldn't expect a huge amount of attacking returns. I think the one that he's already got is probably slightly above what I would expect from him. So yeah, I haven't changed my mind on him, but fair play if you picked him up because 12 points in the first 2 games is an exceptional return from him. And next up, we've got the midfielders. A couple of these I talked about last week, but I still think they're the most interesting ones to talk about. Morgan Rogers, I think, is a fantastic enabler at 5 million. I think if you've got, say, like a Winks, who's sitting on your bench as third option, 4.5 million. If you can free up the funds for that extra 0.5 million, it's well worth it for Morgan Rogers, in my opinion. He's got 4 points in the first 2 games, but he has played 90 minutes in both. This is an eye test one more than anything else. I'm actually surprised that his expected goals and expected assists aren't a little higher. I mean, he did set Watkins up for an absolute sitter, which I'm surprised hasn't scored higher. So easily could have got an assist there. But I just think eye test. I sort of half watched the Arsenal Villa game. I've been on holiday and it was on in the background. And Morgan Rogers, I mean, Arsenal deserved their win, but when Villa were going forward, it was Morgan Rogers who was the biggest attacking threat. The 290 minutes, I think, is indicative of the sort of minutes I expect him to get going forward. I mean, when Europe starts and that sort of thing, definitely there'll be rotation, and Villa do have options, but I think he's first choice. And yeah, as like I say, like at 5 million, you can bench him a lot as well. And look at those fixtures. You've got Leicester away, Everton at home, Wolves at home. Leicester away, I think Leicester are going to really struggle this season. I think they might end up being one of those teams that you target with your attacking players. Everton have started atrociously. I think they're unlucky with injuries, particularly defensively. Branthwaite's a massive miss, and they've sort of got no right backs. Had to play a youth right back in Dixon last week, but yeah, I think that I think they need those players coming back, and I think also Dyche needs to take a chance on some of the players that they bought in, throw O'Brien into the team and see what happens, because they are looking really weak defensively. And Wolves, I swear every season they seem to start with this idea that they've played five at the back pretty much since they've been in the Premiership. Every year they look to play four at the back. They start badly and they end up going back to a five. I think they need to go back to a five because they're essentially playing with wing backs and then two inexperienced centre backs. And it's a team thing for me. They're so exposed. You look at the Chelsea game, and I mean Chelsea hurt them because they scored every time they went on the counter attack, but you just shouldn't be countered kind of, three or four attackers on two all of the time. And that was what was happening in that game. So, yeah, somebody like Morgan Rogers with that fixture coming up, well, those set of fixtures, I don't like the term essential. He's definitely not essential. But if you haven't got him and you're looking at a downgrade in midfield, somebody who you can play some weeks, bench others, he's the best option, I think, in the game for that. Second of all, I got Bruno Fernandes, who's been sold in massive numbers. Essentially, I wanted to point out his sort of expected data. He could have scored two in that first game against Fulham. He definitely should have had an assist really in that second game against Brighton. He's been involved in everything. He's on penalties for them. Takes free kicks. I think he's a decent option. You haven't got the reward if you picked him from the start, but I think the points are coming for Bruno. I wouldn't be running out to sell him. There are options around that price point, but I don't know. Like I look at the ones that I looked at start of the season. Like I've got Anthony Gordon in my own team, and he got points this season. He got points this week. He got goal and some bonus, but I would say Bruno Fernandes has probably deserved more points than Anthony Gordon. He just hasn't got them. And sometimes that's the way it works out for FPL. If I had Bruno, I would probably hold him. If you're going to sell him, you might as well sell him this week because I think holding him through Liverpool and then looking at selling him is kind of pointless when they've got Southampton away and Crystal Palace away after that. Personally, I'd probably just hold him for the next few weeks. I think there's a potential haul in there that could reward your patience with it. And very, very similar things I'm going to say about Eze as well. I think I read that he's taken the most shots in the league so far this season. Obviously, had a goal ruled out in that first game against Brentford, which in my opinion shouldn't have been. He was also pretty unlucky to not get an assist with a very, very tight offside. Against West Ham, he had chances as well. He's not finishing them, and that's disappointing. And I can see why people are selling him in big numbers. I also feel like there might be a hole in there. That Chelsea away game is obviously fairly tough up next, but Chelsea have looked really good going forward, but they could have conceded a few against Wolves. They conceded a couple, and it could have been more. They also looked a little open at the back, and I'm not at all convinced by their centre midfield. The balance just doesn't look right with it. I think teams who are attacking them through the centre are just finding space, essentially. And that's where you can get at Chelsea. So, yeah, don't mind that fixture. And like I say, Leicester at home up after that is really targetable. Man United, I don't hate it after either. You can see Eze getting something out of that one. Um, so yeah, his expected numbers are good. Hasn't got any points so far, but he again, same sort of thing as Bruno. If you've held him so far, I would hold him. I personally am going to hold him on penalties as well, on free kicks for him. Think the points are coming. And finally, we're on to the strikers. So let's start off with Muniz, who I've got in my team. He was a pretty popular kind of enabler. I've not been overly impressed. That Man United game, he really didn't get a sniff. His expected goal involvement isn't bad. I didn't see much of that Leicester game. I've just seen the highlights. That's it, really. But I have sort of read from Fulham fans that they felt like he wasn't that sharp in pre-season and that there's a potential, I think, that Fulham are looking at another striker as well. So I don't know how nailed he is in that team. They've already got Jimenez as well as an option to come in. So I'm not looking at selling him this week. They've got Ipswich away, and then West Ham and Newcastle at home. They're not bad fixtures at all, particularly that Ipswich game up next. Like I say, his underlying data isn't too bad, even though from what I've seen, I haven't seen a lot of sort of chances created for him. He looks a little flat. He is on my watch list as somebody to potentially get rid of. There's options that are cheaper than him as well. João Pedro I considered start of the season. Didn't go with him because of the fixtures, but obviously he's got points he got points this week against Manchester United. So, yeah, there are options. I'm going to hold him. I'm going to wait and see. The underlying data, not terrible, but I do have slight concerns about him. Isak, I also have concerns about. He got an assist in that Southampton game, nothing in the Bournemouth game. It's more a team thing, I think, for Newcastle. They just don't seem to be clicking start of the season. That said, they've had players coming back late. For what Eddie Howe has said, I kind of expect Trippier to come back into the team pretty soon. Wouldn't surprise me if either Livramento was benched or switched to left back. Although I think he's played Trippier at left back before and Livramento right, but we'll see on that. I think that helps them attackingly massively. Trippier's real quality into the box and Isak's sort of movement, I think, is absolutely top notch. It's why he's a top notch striker. His kind of movement in the box. So yeah, the points I think could potentially come from Isak. He's another one that I'm not desperate to sell. Mainly because I don't think there's been any sort of outstanding options so far early in the season. You know, the the big guys, people like Haaland have done really well as a striking option. But yeah, Mike Havertz, I think, is somebody around a similar price point you can look at. Ollie Watkins, who I'll talk about next, is obviously an option as well, but he started the season poorly. So I'm prepared to hold on to Isak. That Tottenham game, I think Tottenham always give you a chance going forward. It wouldn't surprise me if Tottenham win, but clean sheet, not so sure. So I think I'll hold on to Isak, but I want to see an improvement for Newcastle as a team because it just doesn't seem to be quite clicking yet. I've talked before about the potential early wildcard. If I held Isak for that long and, you know, I saw the same sort of performances from Newcastle, I'd probably get rid of Isak, kind of regardless of how he's doing, because I want to see an improvement in that Newcastle team for them potentially scoring more goals. And finally, Ollie Watkins. I had Watkins in my first draft. I took him out because he didn't play a single minute of pre-season. I thought he might start off a bit rusty, and he has looked really rusty. His expected goals is really high because he pretty much missed well, he should have got two against Arsenal, essentially. He's missed two sitters in that game. And yeah, he does look rusty, but that Villa team is all kind of built towards Ollie Watkins, I feel. It's about getting the best out of him in an attacking sense, at least. And I think if you've got Ollie Watkins in your team, you're looking at selling him before Leicester, Everton, and Wolves. I think that's probably a mistake. If you've got him, I think you just hold on to him. He will improve as his kind of match fitness improves. I have absolutely no doubt about that. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he got another 20-goal season. In fact, I think it's quite likely. I just think he's a top-notch striker. I'm not at all surprised with the way he started the season. He probably is rusty. He hasn't really played any sort of football since July, apart from the odd minute off the bench for England. So yeah, if I've got him, I'm holding him. I won't particularly be looking to bring him in, but if he holds against Leicester, I think there will be lots of eyes on him for those two home fixtures against Everton and Wolves. So that's it for my Game Week 3 preview video. I will be back before the deadline with my own team selection video, so keep your eyes peeled for that. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and let me know in the comments what you think about some of the players that I've discussed today. But thanks for watching. I'll leave it there for now. Goodbye.